Did you suddenly get inspired and came up with an idea for a character? Do you already have a backstory and wanted to design a character for a long time? Or do you just want to design a character but you're not inspired and unsure what to draw? Other than drawing lots of fan art, designing characters is a lot of fun to me as well. For the two characters I'll be designing today, I wanted to try some new things, like drawing turnaround sheets and using a more muted, desaturated color palette. In this video I'll be talking about the steps I took to design the characters and draw turnaround sheets for them, while sharing some things I learned along the way. This video should function as a guide to steps you can take to also design characters yourself. Let's start with step 1, which would be about finding the purpose as for designing the character and the concept behind them. At first, it's good to determine the reason why you're designing the character. Whenever I draw something, I find that having a clear reason for why I'm drawing it is really important. You can ask yourself if you want to draw them for specific things. Maybe you want to do an expression sheet, a turnaround sheet, just an illustration, or a game sprite. From this you can set goals and your focus on what is important. For this, you can establish what you will need the design for. At this stage, you can also make notes about the backstory, personality, inspirations for the character. If you don't have inspiration yet, you can just go through personality trait charts, pick some, or use random word generators. And for general ideas, you can also design characters based on themes like seasons, flavors, or even items in your bag, or based off a song and its lyrics. What you can also do is take 5 of your favorite character designs and take parts of them to combine them in a new way. For me, for designing these characters, my initial inspiration was about mainly the aesthetic and the color palette for them. After having designed Sun, Moon, Stars OCs, I now wanted to try something different, something I also really liked. For me, I like both a pastel-y, dreamy and bright aesthetic with some cute accessoires or things like sparkles, but I also like darker, desaturated and minimalistic styles in a more purpley tone, and in general using a more purpley undertone. This time I went for characters that would live on Earth or modern, minimalistic clothes, whereas the Sun, Moon, Stars characters were more based on something dreamy and having more colorful clothes with accessoires. For the characters themselves, I wanted them to be two characters that I imagined met casually and got to know each other better, one of them being more extroverted and very independent, while the other would be more introverted and more clingy. I wanted both of them to not be as friendly and have a rather cold attitude to match the cooler aesthetic. And now we move on to step 2, which would be gathering references and inspiration. After you established a goal and what you want to use the design for and what you want to draw in general, it's time to get visual inspiration. And you can, for one, get references for the kind of art you want to draw the characters in. If you're, for example, going for a turnaround sheet, you can get some other ones as references and inform yourself about what is important to pay attention to for turnaround sheets. I talk about this later. And in case you would instead go for an illustration, you could also look for references for the angle and the pose of the image. Then you get references for the characters themselves. This can be color palettes, outfits, photography, other art from artists, games or shows, and even other characters. It's a good idea to separate this into parts if you want to use lots of references, like I do. And you could separate them into categories like faces, outfits, color palettes, hobbies, personality, and other artists' art you want to learn from. But you can also just stick to a few references. It can make the process a lot faster, and especially when you're designing many characters or a series, it can help to just have a few references for the characters themselves, and if you want to have some overall references for maybe the mood, the color scheme, or the outfits for all of them. This was the mood board I used for designing the two OCs. You can see I have first some references for the proportions as well as hand references. This was also for the poses I would use. Then we have references for the faces, the eyes and the hair. One for the overall aesthetic and also for just hairstyles and so on. So this already has a bit of an aesthetic inspiration as well. Then we have references for turnaround sheets from many other artists and also from this game called Nil Admirarino Tembin. Down here are references for the color palettes I wanted to use. I also experimented a bit with colors myself before. For the outfits and aesthetic, I put them both together. I also came up with the backstory for the characters here a bit. One of them would be a shop owner of a jewelry and tech shop, which had a minimalist aesthetic, while the other one would be kind of a tech nerd who always carries his phone with him. They would meet at this shop, and it's the whole mood board I used. And then we would move on to step 3, which would be to draw the character by combining the references and coming up with your own ideas from them. You can start out with some first sketches here, and there you define the body type, the face, the hairstyle, and the outfit design or designs, as well as the color palette. You could approach this in different ways. You could either draw everything together all at once, or first only the face and the outfit later, or only the outfit and then add other parts later. If you feel overwhelmed, only focusing on one part at a time, like face shape, then the eye shape, then the hairstyle, body type, the overall silhouette, the outfit, and then moving on to color can help. But drawing everything at once can work as well, especially since you can see everything together immediately. It's best to have a starting point. What's most important about the character to you? Why do you want to design them? What makes them stand out? Make sure to include these features first, and then you can build the rest of the design around it. And here I'll mention some general character design tips. The first one is about the silhouette. It can be very helpful to only start out with a silhouette thumbnail, and this can later help with coming up with the outfit, the hairstyle, or the body type, since it should match the silhouette. A clear silhouette is very important when designing characters. You can also check the silhouettes of the characters you're designing later on, but especially for lineups, it's good when you can tell which character is which by their silhouette. The next tip is about the outfit. Here you can work in a big, medium, small scheme. You can focus on what kind of pieces you want to include overall at first, like do you want a jacket, a shirt, pants, or a dress? You can look at the silhouette and how the pieces are cut. Do you want them to give off more of a elegant, flowy feeling, or more of a modern and maybe boxy look? Afterwards you can add patterns, prints, and accessoires to the clothes. If you want to make a more complex outfit, but whenever you design one yourself it turns out boring to you, what helps me a lot is to look for references. Also separating the outfit at first, making sure you're not just including a shirt, pants and shoes, but also a hat, socks, belt, jacket, maybe an earring. Or you can try out cuts that you don't usually see in regular life. As I said, references are very helpful here. You can also be inspired by your character in general, who they are, especially when you're adding accessoires and prints on shirts, for example. When you have a character which likes to listen to music, you can give them headphones, or you have a character that's a fan of a particular movie, you could give them a fan shirt or a fan earring even. For me, with the outfit designs for the two characters, I wanted them to be more minimalistic and have a clean look. My focus was on making the characters not seem as cutesy as some of my other art and trying more desaturated colors. The outfit designs are rather simple to me because of this, especially compared to the Sun, Moon, Stars characters. There I was focusing on outfit and character designs that represent the sun, moon or stars, but also fit together and have a dreamy aesthetic. For designing outfits, to unify them more, you can also use repeated shapes or patterns like diamond shapes for the necklace and on a ring, and then a triangular shape on a shirt along with it. Or you could use lots of circles. Paying attention to shapes in general helps here, which leads me to my next tip, which is about shape language. You can pay attention to this for the body type, the hairstyle, and especially the outfit. If you use more sharp edges, you will have a more aggressive, dynamic look, and for rounded edges they can tend to look friendlier. And for the kind of characters I design, which are more in an anime style, you often don't play around with the body proportions too much and want them to look rather simple. They are rather simple, stylized, but if you want to, you can change the body shape a lot. For anime character designs, I instead focus on the outfits here, keeping the shape in mind. Whether it's a box, a triangle, or an oval shape can be very useful for adding accessoires to the character, for determining the cuts of the shirts or pants they are wearing. The fourth tip will be about color. You can get inspired by colors or have colors as a starting point, or you can just try going for a new color scheme from what you'd usually do. But also if you're adding colors later and are unsure, you can look a bit into what different colors stand for their emotional meaning or impact, and pick colors depending on this. The next step is to keep the purpose of the design in mind. In general, do you want the design to be very functional, fitting to a specific world or time, or is it more important to you that it's just visually appealing, representing the inspirations you have, how you like to draw yourself, or do you want to go for a mix of both approaches? For me, while designing characters, I tend to focus more on the visually appealing aspect. I would prefer just drawing pretty designs or outfits over outfits for specific settings or series. Uniqueness is what the next tip is about. This is important to keep in mind. It doesn't have to mean the character needs to look very different. Just make sure it's not a copy of something else. Even very basic designs can become very unique fast by simply adding accessoires that is connected to the character's backstory, for example. For the last tip I mentioned, which you can use in case you are drawing multiple characters together, this is about using lineups. You can use these and draw all the characters side by side in the beginning to make sure they all stand out. It would be good if you can maybe tell a bit about who they are as a character and their personality by looking at them or drawing all the characters together. You can also make sure that the colors work together and maybe are different. You could also make sure that the colors work together and different for each character, but you could also have all of them have the same color, then making sure the outfits they're wearing are either different or worn differently. Hairstyles, silhouettes, body types or faces are unique is important. Finally, I move on to talking only about turnaround sheets now, since this was what I was focusing on with these characters. And I will first give you a basic guide on how you could approach doing turnaround sheets. How the characters are drawn in turnaround sheets can be different. You could go for a completely symmetrical pose or a slightly dynamic pose, and you can also ask yourself what views you want to include. If you want to use this turnaround sheet for example, a VTuber model or 3D modeling, complete symmetry is often preferred and easier, while for animation, having the character stand in a pose can work as well and might look more interesting and show a bit of who the character is posture-wise. For the views, typically you'd definitely include a front and back, and most of the time a side view. You will also see the 3/4 view sometimes. Some turnaround sheets will have even more views, and for some you might see a more dynamic pose of the character in an action like walking, or expressions of the characters on the side, which can serve as a nice way to show some of the character's personality. You could also do this separately on a pose sheet and expression sheet. Sometimes you'll also have a close-up of the character's face, since in the turnaround it can be small. For more complex outfits, the outfit pieces can be drawn separately as well. For the side view, this arm will also be drawn separately from the body sometimes to show the outfit underneath and make clear what the sleeve looks like. For outfit variations and layers, it can also be nice to have a base layer without clothes and then different clothes layers which can be combined on top. Something I also saw was that for some sheets the hands will be drawn in a close-up way, which is helpful when there are either hand accessoires, nail polish, or there is a lot of emphasis on having unique hands for each character. For the turnaround sheets I went for a front, side and back view, and for the back view I could often mirror the front and use the same silhouette. I just had to draw in the inner pieces of the outfits. I would start out by sketching the body, and for the taller character, he has slightly wider hips while the shorter one has slightly wider shoulders, but as I said before, their bodies are very similar. And when drawing the line art, I only drew the parts of the body that would not be covered by the outfit, since I only wanted to do one outfit for the characters and not have a base body which I could draw many outfits on top, but I included some variations for the outfits I had for both characters. For the taller one, I had an optional jacket on top, and for the other one, an optional bag. The layer setup can matter a lot here, especially if you plan to add other things and decide to change the hairstyle later on. Having the hair and outfit be on separate layers can help. Now finally, I'll also talk a bit about the characters. As I mentioned in the beginning, the taller one would be the shop owner, who is more extroverted, and the shorter one would be the tech nerd. What I experimented with along the way and variations I tried included different face shapes, hairstyles and outfits. I wanted the shorter character to have a jacket at first, but I couldn't figure out colors I was happy with, so I decided not to include it. So for the colors, I tried lots of variations, even though I wanted a simple and minimalistic palette. Deciding on the outfit colors as well as the hair colors was a bit difficult, but after lots of experimenting I got two versions I was happy with. I also drew the characters in a pose, which was fun to me, especially when you're designing multiple characters. Having them interact can help a lot with conveying who they are as a person, showing the relationship between your characters. I also used a different approach for shading faces as well as the pose illustration. As I said before, I went with a more minimalistic color palette. Because of this, I only used one color to shade, except for the eyes. Normally I use different colors for each color, but this was interesting to try and made the shading process a bit faster. Both ways of shading can look very nice to me. That's what I have to say about the characters themselves. I didn't mention any names because I haven't come up with names for them yet, so if you want to, you can leave some name suggestions in the comments. You can also comment what you in general prefer, a more colorful, bright and cute aesthetic or a more muted, desaturated, dark one. I hope the video could be a nice guide for designing characters and drawing turnaround sheets and give some helpful tips. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Goodbye.